when the Lord first appeared to Faustina on February 22nd, 1931, that image behind me, he said there'll be many graces coming from this image. It was only years later, though, that they discovered or realized that February 22nd in the Eastern Rite Church during that year was the Feast of the Sacred Images. Because remember, in the Eastern Rite and throughout the world, for many years, hundreds of years ago, there was a heresy that, it's wrong to venerate and respect images. It's wrong to venerate and show respect to statues. And we still see that today. The Catholics get beat up for it a lot. You have a beautiful statue of the Blessed Mother, and they say, well, you're worshiping that plastic statue. And no, we're showing respect for the person represented in the statue, not worshiping the statue itself. And, people who do that same criticism have no problem if you ask them, well, show me a picture. You have a picture of your kids or your wife, and they pull out their wallet and they're so proud of it. And yet, the same thing holds where you're worshiping that Kodak paper. It's almost nonsensical. So it was the Feast of Sacred Images. And he also told Faustino, as you know, that he wanted this special feast day. It wasn't a new feast day. It was in the church hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but it had kind of been slowly forgotten. And he just wanted it resurrected, so to speak. And he said he wanted it on the first Sunday after Easter. And a lot of priests have problems with that, but don't understand what a beautiful culmination of the Easter octave, 8 days. And on the 8th day, the first day you got Jesus rising from the dead. And on the 8th day, you're going to celebrate his great mercy for all of mankind. It makes so much sense. But a couple neat things about the feast day, as Catholics, we believe that even though we go to confession, our sins are forgiven, but there's a small stain on our soul. And to see God, we have to be pure. Our soul has to be pure. Now, even the Jews believed something like this, because in Maccabees, it talks about praying for the dead. Well, if everybody went to heaven, you wouldn't need to pray for them. If everybody went to hell, you wouldn't need to pray for those either. So there has to be some intermediate zone where the soul is preparing to see God. Many people are so afraid of purgatory. And in actuality, many theologians realize now that the biggest pain of purgatory is the longing to see God, and that is a pain, but you've made it. You've made it. You're going to make it. You just need that purification. But on the feast day, he said, forget all that stuff, all the stain, the sins on our soul. He's like the great teacher. And Dave used to be a math teacher, if I remember right. And instead of putting math equations up on the board, if they had all my sins, it would fill the board. But on Mercy Sunday, Jesus said, if you come in a state of grace and receive Holy Communion on that day, he's the great school teacher, and he's going to wipe that slate clean. And if you were to die, or if I'm going to die, I would hope it'd be on Mercy Sunday, because you'd be straight to heaven. And so it's a day of tremendous graces. But he also said, the floodgates of heaven are open. So think of Niagara Falls. Think of the power coming down from the heavens on Mercy Sunday. And God never forces himself on us. He never forces his will on us. But that's a day to ask for something that you need in your life. Most importantly, as Faustina talked about all the time, was she just wanted to do his will. So we have to always ask that it be God's will. And if it's not, that's okay. It's not God's will. There's another purpose for all this, which we'll eventually realize. But we can certainly ask. Faustina had in her diary, I believe it's entry 343, she took a page and she made an X on it and said, my will no longer exists, only the will of the Father. So we can ask. Well, my first introduction to Mercy Sunday was many years ago, maybe 1994 or 1995. My priest friend, Father Fitzgerald, who's now gone on to his reward, he was a special priest. And I asked him, can we do a Divine Mercy Sunday celebration? Well, he said, sure, we'll do what you want. Well, the Florida Catholic heard about it. That was the Catholic newspaper in our diocese. They came to my home the week or 10 days before, and Father was holding an image of Divine Mercy on his lap, the one we have in our living room. And I brought it home from Poland, and Father's holding this so proudly. And we talked about, we're going to have this special celebration at St. Francis of Assisi, and we're going to have adoration, and we're going to say prayers, and we're going to thank God for his mercy. And afterwards, there's a spaghetti dinner for everybody. So the day went beautifully. The church was overflowing. He was shocked that so many people came out. And the next week, I pulled out the Florida Catholic, and I'm reading the article because sure enough, the lady showed up to see how it came out. And I'm reading it. And I'm like stunned, literally tears come down my eyes, because she said, now you got 500 people there, and she goes and talks to 2 or 3. And the one she talked to says this: well, I'm from Virginia, and I'm down here for a few months, and I saw that you were having the Feast of Divine Mercy, so I wanted to come back and thank God, because a year ago to the day, I prayed that my son, a heroin addict, would get off heroin. And the next day, he told me he was going cold turkey, which is so difficult. And she said, he's been drug-free for the whole year, and I'm coming back to thank God for his mercy. And I thought of the 10 lepers, and where are the other 9? But she came back. And that was my introduction to the Feast of Divine Mercy.